Many thanks for staying with Friday Night. Now, a surge in COVID-19 numbers across the country is worrying health workers. At least 2,000 healthcare workers have been infected with COVID-19 across the country, and at least 30 have died of COVID-19. Concerns about their safety seem to have fallen on deaf ears. So what needs to happen before the government heeds to the desperate call of healthcare workers? Tonight, we hear from young doctors in this field, and I'm joined by Dr. Alan Gray Mukuzi. He is an ENT surgery resident, and I'm also joined by Dr. Ngala Mwendwa, also known as Dr. Rain. He is a pediatric resident. Gentlemen, many thanks for being with us. I'll start with you, Dr. Gray. What have the last 8 months been like for you since COVID-19 was reported in the country?
Well, for me, I think it has been a mixed feelings. Initially, mostly fear, because the initial reports that were coming from other parts of the world, China, the USA, and Europe, were showing shocking numbers. And already in my heart and my knowledge told me that Kenya and Africa was not ready for this pandemic. But then as the time went on, I think I kind of morphed into a sense of duty, and I was like, hey, Alan, now it's time to step up and serve your country. And this is the time that you've been called, or you've been waiting for to be called upon. Now it's time for you to step up. So that is like the shortest narrative I can give for my last 8 months experience.
And Dr. Rain, for you, you came out online and went viral this last weekend, spoke very passionately about what an average day looks like for you at the hospital. The case of nerves initially, like Dr. Gray spoke about for you, what has life morphed into being in that hospital environment during this pandemic period?
Thanks, Lillian, and thanks for having me. I think the past few months, especially from October, it's just daunted onto us as healthcare workers that, you know, every day you wake up, you just need to be grateful, because at any point you can contract this disease, and with everything that is happening right now, like, you can't even get access healthcare as a healthcare worker. You're providing a service, yet at the same time, if you fall sick, that service is not given back to you. So it's heartbreaking. I'm even emotional right now just thinking about it, and basically my heart bleeds for this country. It bleeds for the healthcare workers. We have been neglected by the government. That's no lie. Under
what conditions does a doctor, for instance, find themselves infected and unable to access this healthcare?
I'll give you an example. If you contract COVID-19 right now as we speak, or the experiences that we have faced is that even the doctors who passed away, these are people who just didn't pass away because there was no way out. There was actually a way out for them. It's just that the hospitals were full. Some of them needed to be airlifted. And when you start thinking about it, and MPs are trying to get themselves helicopters, but what about the common citizen? We are human beings. We are the citizens of this country. So if you cannot provide for me a chopper so that you can save my life, so that I can go and save other people's lives, then we definitely have a problem. So it's just the reality that is on the ground compared to what is being done. Nothing is being implemented.
Nothing is being implemented. Dr. Gray, to you now. You spoke as well on your Instagram, and you said that the sad reality is that as doctors, if you got sick now, there'd be nowhere to admit you.
I have been very fortunate that I haven't had any close shave or any experience of being infected, or, well, I would say that I've been exposed by virtue of my work. However, I've not gotten to a position whereby I even need to get tested. So I've not even gotten tested this year. But like you mentioned, my call out on social media really was actually to the citizenry, that even us as the people in this country, we have a role to play in this pandemic. And until we play our role as a citizenry, it will not be entirely fair to call on the government to play their role. And what do I mean? I would mean that we need to wash our hands, we need to sanitize, we need to keep social distances. I'm seeing people who are still holding concerts. I have friends or family who tell me like, hey, Dr. Gray, tell us really, is it true that this pandemic is actually there? It is real, it is real. And for me, it was a call out to the citizens that, hey, listen, before we call out on the government to help us, there's a part that we as the citizens have to play. Then the government has a role to play too. Until we play, and a large bit of the role that we have to play, or rather curbing the pandemic, has to do with the citizens. And we saw this in the first wave. In the first wave, the country played its role very well. The president also played his role very well, and we were able to contain the numbers. And then now I think people got comfortable, and then the second wave has come harder, and it has hit us hard. We have no beds in the country, as in we're seeing senior government officials and other people, VIPs, I would say, not making it to hospitals. That's how bad the situation is.
Doctors have been complaining for years now, and now with COVID-19, a new reality as well. In terms of the issues you guys are facing on the front line, what are those? Are you well protected? What is your insurance cover like?
We're definitely not well protected. The issue has been substandard PPEs that have been circulating in the market. And you need to understand that PPE is the protective equipment that is supposed to protect you. You can have a helmet, but that doesn't mean if you get in an accident, you can't get a head injury. Or you can have a bulletproof vest, but that doesn't mean if you get shot, you can't sustain an injury that would lead to your death. So as much as they do provide PPEs at times, it's not done in equal measure. There are people who have PPEs and there are other people who don't have. And it's easy for people to say that PPEs are provided all round. And that's coming from a point of privilege, because privilege is when you have something and somebody else doesn't have it, but it doesn't seem to concern you. So the reality on the ground is it's very dire. At any point you can contract this disease. As we speak, I'm doing my residency. One of my classmates is right now in Kenyatta. He was admitted to ICU after many phone calls. It's not like it was automatic. So things had to be done. Certain strings had to be pulled. I have another friend who's contracted COVID-19. We have nurses who have contracted COVID-19. Even when you're provided with the PPEs, we are still at risk. And the fact that we don't have group life cover, if I die today, what happens to my family? If a nurse dies today, what happens to their family? And you are essentially on the front line. We are fighting an invisible enemy. We're not protected. Even just the sheer support, especially mental support, it is absolutely vital that our mental health comes in check, because as a doctor, we are trained to treat people, make them better. Our job is not that of a mortician to come and tell somebody, look, we don't have oxygen, we don't have a bed, you're going to die. Right. For me personally, that is moral injury.
Moral injury, and that's very powerful. Dr. Gray, for you as doctors, this is a calling, and that's why you go beyond hours, normal hours for any other employee. You really, really give yourselves out. If the union makes good its threat to actually go on strike, then what happens to the lives that are depending on you as doctors to save their lives?
Well, that's quite an unfortunate eventuality that could actually occur, but I think there's a message behind it, and I think it's actually just a call out to the people responsible, Ministry of Health or whoever else is responsible in running this show, just to give us a seat at the table, to give them insights. I think we have seen the video recently, Dr. James Nikal and the House actually being moved to tears, and for me the interpretation of that moment was that there's a breakdown in communication, or there's a breakdown in the knowledge that is out there. I think I dread to think that it is known in the Ministry of Health or to the people concerned about the situation. I dread to think that they know what is going on and they decide not to do anything. For me, I think it would be very important and helpful that we include or invite the younger doctors onto the table to give their insights, to give their experiences, and perhaps to forge a way forward, because a strike will not in my opinion, give any solutions to the current situation. We will end up losing more lives. And like I said, we all have a duty, and the doctors in this country have played their duty very well thus far. All we are asking for is, hey, listen, you guys have put together a good team, and I know some of the people in this team, they're good consultants, some of them are my teachers. They are actually very capable people. They are a good team. However, I think there's a bit or an angle that has been overlooked of the people in the trenches, the likes of Dr. Rain and myself, to actually be invited to the table for an opportunity to give our experience and insights on the way forward.
I thank you, gentlemen, and one more parting shot as we wind up. Behavior patterns that have changed for you. Dr. Rain, listening to your very powerful message on Instagram, you said it's time now to spend more time with your family. It's time to look at your life and you know, just really, really appreciate life for what it is. What would you like to leave your colleagues with tonight, and indeed your constituents on Instagram who really, really felt you when you made that call to the government, to anybody that could listen? What would you like to leave us with tonight?
Get your affairs in order. I said that at a point where I was very emotional. I had family member that I lost. I had a friend, Dr. Vladimir, who I'd lost. But this is the time to fight. Kenyans, you need to understand that you have the right to healthcare. You have the right to demand more. All those billions coming in, those billions can be invested, planted in all those county hospitals to ensure that we have 47 counties that have well-equipped hospitals, so that you don't have to overcrowd the private hospitals. You don't have to overcrowd Kenyatta National Hospital. Let's not start discussing things like BBI. Let us move the funds where they have to be. If we don't take care of ourselves and our healthcare, this pandemic will wipe us out. We have seen it in the West. So it's time for Kenyans to stand up, fight for your right for healthcare, fight together with the doctors and all the healthcare workers.
For me, actually, I'd like to praise perhaps the unsung heroes, and we've had this conversation with Brian. We happen to work together, and we've had this conversation with him. We have family at home. I have a wife and a very small baby, only 2 months old, and every day I leave home to go to work to serve the nation. I look into their eyes, and you know, they're always very scared that, hey, when you go out there, please don't bring this thing back home to us. And for me, I'm very grateful to that part of the team that is not really looked into, and they have played a very supportive role. To all healthcare workers, I know all healthcare workers have family who look up to them and are actually waiting on them to see if we deliver the promise of actually good healthcare. And finally, for me, it's a call to Kenyans that, hey, listen, let's listen to what we're being told. Social distancing, wash your hands, sanitize, please avoid going to places where you don't really have to, and overcrowding. And finally, to the government, please invite us to the table. We might be young, maybe we might be viewed as inexperienced, and maybe we don't have as much wisdom, but by being in the trenches, we will give you stories that no one else who hasn't been there will be able to give you that story.
I thank you for your time, gentlemen. I've been talking to Dr. Alan Gray Mukuzi, ENT surgery resident, and Dr. Ngala Mwenra, also known as Dr. Rain, pediatric resident. We're taking a break. We're back with more in just a bit.